5:02, and I'll call the meeting to order. What we're going to do is we'll go the agenda first, and then we'll do some introductions here, and I'll make some introductory remarks, and then we'll go from there. So I would like to entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Okay. By way of introduction, I'm Dominic Kidron, and I'm chair of the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee. And we'll start with Phil and Laura.
My name is Philip Prince.
Tom Danler.
John Bell.
Tad Redway, town planner.
Dan Boyce.
And we have one other committee member who's just walking in now. Sorry. So I'll leave you to one place at once. Introduce yourself before we get going.
Diane Robbins.
Okay, thank you. Before we start, for the folks in the audience, first of all, thank you so much for coming, because we need your input at this stage of the game. If you have any questions or remarks or comments to make, if you would precede those by giving us your name and address, just street address if you're a normal resident, obviously. By way of introduction, in terms of what we've done, the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee was asked to look at several areas of town which had mixed use, some commercial, business development, as well as residential. And what we did was, as you look through your paperwork there, you're going to see that we're recommending two types of changes. The one type is what we can refer to as a substantive change, which actually changes the rules, so to speak. And the second type of change, the non-substantive ones, basically clean up details and language for the purpose of clarity, accuracy, and consistency within the plan. So that's a matter of, a comma here and a phrase there that doesn't change what it means, but simply makes it work. In terms of what we've focused on, it's really been two things. One is to create and or rework 5 areas of town which we're referring to as mixed-use districts. And the purpose of that was twofold: to foster commercial development, while at the same time respecting private property rights of both residential and business property owners. We all felt very strongly that if people have owned a piece of property for years and years, or even minutes and minutes, it's not fair to change the rules in midstream without allowing them the options that they would prefer to have. The second thing we had as a goal and a focus is to make the comprehensive plan better reflect the current uses in the areas, as well as to accommodate future growth. And although part of that focus, a good deal of it, is on increased business and commercial development in terms of changing the tax base in the town, that has not been the only focus. We're certainly being respectful of the residential uses at the same time. What we're going to do in terms of the public hearing portion of the program is listen to whatever comments or questions you may have and respond to questions regarding the amendments that you have in the paperwork that you picked up tonight. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at, or at least know a little bit about ahead of time. So what I'd like to do at this point is open it up to you folks in terms of any questions or comments that you may have, and then we'll kind of let it flow from there. The initial focus would be on sections B and C, where we are repealing some of the names, getting rid of Highway Commercial District, which is known as HC, the Community Commercial South and North Districts, CCS and CCN, and making some changes to the Business Industrial or BI District. We also had a few changes we needed to make to tweak the Natural Resource Conservation Districts. But initially, I'd like to focus on the mixed-use districts, the business districts.
And that's page B4 and B5 that we're...
Yes, primarily.
Yeah, we're all over one.
Yeah.
Could somebody comment from the board, I'm Tom Sinclair, 18 Montana Road, on the intent of, and I think I understand, Tad and I talked on this, for taking away Community Commercial South and the others, and how we're going to roll it in, just in general, what the thrust is. Madam Chairman, you captured it, but can we have some more words on, so I think what we have here are a lot of business owners that might be concerned that they might be losing some rights for what they do right now. They're in a commercial, they don't want to hear the word grandfather. You can do it now, but your grandson can't take it over. You know, if I want to sell my property, the next owner can't use it as a restaurant. You know, can somebody talk to those issues? Or?
Okay, I think to some extent, your question is more of a planning board question.
Okay.
However,
Yeah.
to address it to the extent that I think we can, the purpose in this was to take, and I have to separate out community commercial north, because
Right.
that's the Route 111 piece.
Right.
Community commercial south and the highway commercial districts are the Route 1 section.
Right.
And the idea there was to take the existing business district right along Route 1, which is now going to be called DB1, Downtown Business District 1, and expand that into some of the backland in the form of DB2.
Go deeper into the.
Yes.
Right.
All right. Part of the rationale for that, in fact, a good portion of the rationale for that, is
Right.
that we have some fairly limited land which is suitable for commercial development.
Mhm.
And a lot of that was away from the Route 1 corridor. So by expanding into DB2, it gives the town the option for some larger commercial development in more suitable areas.
Okay, that's a good thing, as long as we're not taking away from the Route 1 businesses and existing that we have now.
With regards to the part of the question that talked about uses, as I said, that's the part that's the planning board piece of the question, because they will, next week, at their public hearing, talk about the specific permitted and conditional uses in all of the districts that we talked about today.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Anything else from the audience, or would the committee like to add anything? Everybody like to add anything?
No, Madam Chairman, the only thing I have a blow-up here of that district. The two districts, DB1 in the blue, DB2 in the blue, and DB1 in the red. Again, having the smaller uses up front and expanding the district out in the back in some areas where it isn't. Currently, it's just residential in some areas, and to allow for a greater number of uses and much larger uses than currently are allowed in either the CCS district or the R1 district. So it provides for a greater number of opportunities in the future. Still, we'll handle this at the planning board level, but the planning board was very adamant about ensuring that one of the first things was to, the first uses that's a permitted use is any business that's existing as of June of 11, which means it's automatically permitted use. That's a permitted use, period. Always will be a permitted use, period. Grandfathering is not a term that's to be used in the system. It'll be used for people after the 11th. But for existing businesses that have been here for any length of time and committed to Arundel and made investments, it's to ensure that those businesses can stay forever, be sold, transferred to children, whatever.
Great.
Okay, anything else with regards to DB1 and DB2? Yes, sir.
Alan LeBret. I live up in the top corner there where the B1 meets the DB2 area, in that corridor there by Fritz's shop also. And I think, like, this whole map has been done and really didn't get that much input from the townspeople. I came to a couple of the meetings there that was informal and stuff. There wasn't many people there. And I mentioned it at the meeting that it's all good. You guys touch base with the landowners that were being directly affected by it, in which they definitely should, obviously, but you also should be getting in touch with the abutters to that land, because when those people do sell off, because now they have, an incentive to do some of the business back there, which is great for the town. The people that are living there, that the land abuts, they're the ones who have to live with the decisions that's being made, and I don't think anybody was here that was abutters to the property, and I wasn't informed of it, so I think, and I know you guys will be revisiting all the zones to the comprehensive plan. I think, you know, if you're changing something that abuts sale, somebody's land, you should be notifying those people also. And this map here, the people weren't notified. I've even asked 3 times to be notified, and I'm still not notified of the meetings.
Okay, well, that's something that's done through the planner's office, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was a protocol for who was notified about what types of changes and hearings?
Well, what he's referring to is, we notified all property owners in the affected district. We did not, and he's right, we did not, as we call it, either at the planning board level or at the comprehensive planning committee, we did not notify abutters within proximity. We notified some, but not every single one of them. Unfortunately, he wasn't notified. I still don't know why you're on the list.
And I just got the mail today, and it still wasn't there.
So
You said
it
you added
kills
me.
me. It kills
You
me.
know, and
I was looking at-
but be assured, my tax bill comes in. And I just want you to know that, don't worry. That's taken care of, you know? But, you know, and so honestly, I feel, you know, that even this map that's, you know, we're gonna have a meeting on, really, the people, you know, that's in the community right next to it, don't even know it's happening. And I don't think that's fair at all.
I understand your concern. I don't know that there's anything we can do about it at this stage of the game. Do you have a specific concern as an abutter?
Yes, I do. One, I mean, Tad knows of the issue we were dealing with. On the last cycle, we were told one thing, my home from that map might not be correct. And if right now the map shows me in B1, which when I purchased land, I was in R2. Then when that one came out, I was supposed to be in R1, same with my mother and Fritz's home property. Somehow, we're showing me in B1, which, you know, I'm just a residential home. You know, I know Fritz, but he can speak for himself, but we built back there, past the 1,000-foot line, so that, you know, it was gonna be homes. We're not in a business area with our homes. It was, you know, past that line at the time, and now, you know, you change this, you know, B1 all the way around, including with it, which I didn't even realize. And so now, anytime I've ever asked anything, I was always R1. And then, so I have high business, industrial, you know, to the north of me and to the south of me. Now, you guys want to utilize that land that abuts mine for large businesses, which is, I'm all for business in the town, we need it, we get the tax base down, it's good, I understand that, and I'm all for it, but I just think it should be looked at a little bit more. I mean, you're looking at 100,000 square foot buildings, possibly 50 feet tall. What are you guys doing to really protect the people around it from the impact of that?
Okay, much as it pains me to answer your question this way, those are planning board issues.
But I brought it up to the planning board, but it never.
I understand your frustration. However, the comprehensive plan sets out a general guideline. And the general guideline here was that, well, it's exactly the language that you see written, no more, no less. That DB1 and DB2 would be in these general areas of town. They would accommodate these general types and sizes of businesses. The planning board does the fine tuning and the detail work. They are the ones that actually develop the map, set the lot lines. So if a particular parcel of land is included in one district or not, that's a planning board decision. The same thing holds for the specifics of the uses of the land, the specific sizes of the businesses and types, and whatever screening and buffering and that type of thing. So I would love to be able to give you resolution to your problem, but I can't because that's not our job. The planning board is the group with which you have to take those issues up.
Just one comment, Tom Sinclair Property, I've developed 2 projects in Arundel, and it wasn't the planning board, and I wasn't allowed to do anything without a butter's knowledge, approval, and input. The lighting I put up couldn't go. The building hedgerows, not to the noise level, not to impact on residential. And the code officer and the planning were very adamant on bringing the project and scaling it, not to interrupt or intrude on residential living. So it was on a case-by-case basis. So somebody can't come in, and I won't mention any developers, that might want to do a big box project and just railroad through. They might have a lot of tax returns and revenues, but they have to come in and go through the planning board, and they have to have those setbacks. They have to conform and not impact on residential. And there's supposed to be public notices, mailing out, we mailed certified letters, very correct, and to the point of, I did see Glass Corral on Winter Road for a nonprofit, and lost a ton of money on it, but my wife was on the board, and she wanted it kicked out of their ground. And so we had a site walk with the planning board, and the neighbors were invited. We actually did coffee and cookies, no booze. And one wanted trees, and we burned, and we did it all and brought the project down, and then we actually revisited that because they thought the performing arts would be too loud with venues, the parking for cars coming in. And again, this is not going to see Glass Performing Arts. And it actually worked out very well, and you could go to every neighbor that abuts 45 Limerick Road. And it's a different business now. They're doing millworks, but I think to mix use, you don't, residential is premier. It's not the big guy coming in building things. So the process is there. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, but they're permitted uses, so, you know.
Yeah, and it has to fit. You can't have a kennel with 1,000 dogs in there that are going to bark and whatever and keep you awake. You can't have a motorcycle racing track. You can't. So that's where you have town planners and code people that are going to keep the developer honest and inform everybody. And I can tell you our experience, and we've developed in several communities here, to include Biddeford, Kennebunkport, and Kennebunk Lower Village. One of the best was this group here. I'm not just preaching to the folks here. If I had it to do all over again, I would have bought 20 properties here in Arundel instead of where I did. But they have, you're the taxpayer, they have your interest at heart, and I've seen the system work both ways. And it's just, and it's on record for the two properties we've done: 18 Log Cabin Road, 45 Limerick Road.
Thank you for your input. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I understand you saying it's for the planning board, but, if you guys are setting the guidelines, I just wish maybe you guys set the guidelines at least so that because you guys are visiting all the zones, that there is gonna be more reach out to the people, around that zone, at least, I know you're saying you can't do anything about it, but there should be something that's sent over, that more people are reached so they know what's going on.
Well, I do appreciate that, and the effort that we made to contact all of the immediate landowners was something we felt very strongly about, and even at that, we did not have a lot of people show up. But I don't disagree with you at all. As many people as possible that can be included in the process at the beginning makes the product better at the end. So, thank you. Anything else with regards to DB1 and DB2? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Richard Fritz's Tire. I would like to see when the planning board is setting up, and I know this, you're not the planning board, but when the planning board is planning on making these changes, they put together a stakeholders group of business people that can have an input on what's actually being done. It might even make some sensible decisions and suggestions. I've sat on a stakeholders group in Augusta before on 3 or 4 different opportunities. And if you do that, the best product comes out, because you've got all people that are interested in what's going on at that meeting, trying to come up with something that makes sense, because they really all want it to happen. I want business in Arundel. I'm all for business in Arundel. I do not want to put business in Arundel and take like my son and put him in a position where now he's going to have a zone where somebody can come even with an amusement park. Would they build one? I don't know. But you know how devastating that will be on him if it happens? So I don't think that enough is asked of the business community for input on these issues that we're dealing with. And they should be included. And I'm sure there's plenty of business people, probably some of the people right here in this room, that would love to sit on a stakeholders group and have some input, and not just people that don't own businesses, that don't understand how it all works. And if you've never owned a business, if you haven't walked in my shoes, you don't understand. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's work our way through the rest of this first section. Community Commercial North, we did very little with. We did suggest the extension of that further west to the power lines, which is a matter of basically a few hundred feet. We also suggested that that area be developed a little less on the south side of 111, where there's a lot of residential, and more on the north side up to the Biddeford line, where there's some open land. So the reason for our recommendation that some businesses of some larger sizes could be included in there was a result of potentially in the future taking advantage of some of that open land. The planning board has not as yet addressed that particular district at all. All we did was recognize it as it is an existing mixed-use area now. It has potential for some additional commercial development. There are properties on 111 there that are for sale, have been for some time. There will probably be more in the future. So we see that as another potential growth area down the road. Quite frankly, the planning board initially, and we subsequently have focused most of our attention on the Route 1 corridor, because that seems to be more of an immediate area of growth. But the Community Commercial North, which will be subsequently known as the Arundel Road District, thank you, Alfred Road District, is on the list for the planning board to take a look at fairly soon. Changes to the BI district, basically those are just little changes that reflected, those are some of the non-substantive changes that simply reflected changes in the language in terms of abutting DB1 and DB2 as opposed to abutting highway commercial district. And I just want to make sure I'm not missing something there. Yeah, again, very minor changes there. Yes, ma'am.
On this particular section, it just says, it describes it, but it didn't give it a name. Was that purposely?
Where are you?
On B5? Mine doesn't have, did it cut it off?
I don't know. I still don't know what you're looking at.
Well, mine starts with mixed use.
Arundel,
Oh, okay, yes. I see, now, what's your specific question?
All right. It was Community Commercial North, CCN. Now you're saying it's supposed to be called what?
ARD.
ARD, the last one in the list. Nope, go back.
Right, but when you, what I'm saying is, when I'm looking at my page,
You don't have
there's
it.
no title. It's not labeled. So that's why I
The
go.
very, the last bullet at the eastern end of Route 111 called the Alfred Road District. You got that one?
Right, but why is it not, these are all titled.
Yes, but that's what you're looking at is the general statement describing all 5 mixed-use districts.
C7, page
Okay.
C7.
Got it, never mind, all right.
Section B is more introductory in general, and
Okay.
section C gets into the nitty-gritty a bit more.
All right,
Okay, long day?
yes.
Okay.
This is only my 4th meeting this week, so.
Okay, no problem. Does anyone have any questions regarding the business industrial district? Yes, sir.
Your comprehensive planning member who just spoke
Yes.
brings up a good point.
Could we have your name and
Certainly.
address, please?
Wayne Monroe, resident of Arundel,
Thank you.
past comprehensive planning member from the 90s, and worked on this. I think this is probably 3 editions later, but the woman who just spoke, are you on the planning board?
She's comprehensive.
Comprehensive planning committee,
Diane
right, so
Robbins.
brings the point up that there's confusion, because under the CCN, which was formerly the north end of Route 111, is that correct?
The east end, yes,
Okay, so that's now the ARD, is that right?
that's correct.
Okay, now we're talking about the BI, presently business industrial, is that correct?
Yes.
and that's gonna be the Gateway District?
No.
Okay, was any part of the existing business industrial changed?
Well, the Gateway District, which we will get to, but we can jump to it now, is a very, very small area, the northern end of Route 1.
Formerly or presently
And-
zoned as?
Presently zoned as BI. However, it's already sort of separated itself out because of the nature of the businesses and the residences that are already there. So since it was an entry point into town, it made logical sense to separate that very small area, and it's, what, how many feet roughly from
It's
the
showing, it's the red.
borderline? So we're looking at
Okay, so.
1,000 feet.
Right, so what I'm recommending is that maybe in your definition, put some context to it and say, this is a 1,000-foot section from the beginning of town, northern end of Route 1, which was previously the BI, or something to eliminate that confusion. But this might be a good idea, because it is very confusing. I realize that you have, several other chapters ahead before town meeting, including the land use table, which is going to be revealed and discussed at the next public hearing a week from tonight. That particular table, at this moment, as presented on the town website, does not even have the Gateway District on it.
There's a reason for that. Let me
Okay.
explain. Let me address your issues one at a time. Again, the comprehensive plan is a very general document. There have been times in the past when the comp plan has included specific distances, and it really should not have done so. So we're trying to get away from that. So the very generic statement that you see on page B5, which says, at the northern end of the Route 1 corridor called the Gateway District, that's end of discussion for the comprehensive plan. The reason why you won't find any more information about that is that the planning board has not addressed that at all yet. So the next go-around with the planning board, the Gateway District and what was Community Commercial North, now Alfred Road District, will be addressed and we'll have the details filled in.
So those are future build-outs that aren't currently, have any specific language or bring it before the town for change, is that correct? You're not attempting to bring it, it's embedded within the comprehensive planning document to be, voted on, but there's no specific change coming before the town meeting on that district?
That's correct. All we are doing is, we're doing some language changes.
Right, but some of this language change is going to be presented before the town for, vote and passage coming up. Some of it isn't, that's why I bring up this discussion. So I understand that. what you're
Okay,
saying.
I understand the reason for the confusion, but the point is we have three of the mixed-use districts, DB1, DB2, and Townhouse Corner, which the planning board has addressed. The other two, they have not. And what we did was we in the natural order of operations, we've laid the groundwork. We said the Gateway District and the Alfred Road District are two areas that the planning board needs to take a look at and come up with the appropriate parameters for future development. But they have not done so at this time, nor will that be presented at town meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else as we move along here? Okay, let me get on the right page. That would be a step in the right direction. Natural Resource Conservation District, if you take a look at that, we made a couple of changes there based upon basically changes in circumstances and some changes with regards to the state designations. The previous language of the Natural Resource Conservation District had a very specific location for it, which we have deleted. It's basically located along the Kennebunk River around Brimstone Pond, associated with high-valued wetlands and wildlife habitat. We eliminated that, and also the distance phrase within 100 feet of the river. New housing should be prohibited, but existing uses should be allowed to expand as long as they maintain adequate buffering and do not encroach closer on the river. What we were looking for there was, again, something far more general that the planning board could then use in the future. That natural resource conservation in this town certainly should not necessarily be limited to that specific location. that deer wintering areas and other areas of town might very well qualify for that designation. And we wanted basically to kind of open that up. Again, beyond that point, I don't know if anything's going to be done with that in the immediate future, maybe not ever. But the idea was to make that a more generic statement as opposed to one that was so specific.
That's a good thing. And some towns go overboard, and then you're hampered on where you can build.
Well, the other thing with that too is if all of a sudden the state says, you know, they change their laws,
Right.
and, you know, now they gotta go back and change this.
No, it's a good thing.
You know, so,
Okay, now that takes us to, we've already addressed the last portion of that paragraph, the addition 5 mixed-use districts, including, however, we have not as yet discussed the Gateway District, the Townhouse Corner District, so that would be the next logical one to take a look at. Townhouse Corner District is an entirely new mixed-use district, and that was a result of the request on the part of some of the folks who own property there. It was a residential area, but yet there were businesses. That placed some constraints on some of the things that were going on, and it seemed to make sense to make that also a mixed-use district because it was exactly like some other sections of town where there were mixed residential and business uses going on. So if you look at the language for that, since this is a brand new one, I'll go into a little more detail.
So, and that would be down in the Cape area down
Yes.
right down here where the Log Cabin Road and the Arundel Road, and then this becomes Kennebunkport here, so it's kind of right on the lower end, you know, by the Kennebunkport area.
Yes, and we're on page C7 if you're a little lost at this point. Easy to do. Townhouse Corner District designation applies to the nexus of Arundel Road, Log Cabin Road, City Road, known as Townhouse Corner. This is a long-standing kind of historic name for that area. This district has historically been a mixed-use district and an important institutional and commercial crossroads. The district will permit small-scale retail, office, service, and community uses as well as single and multifamily dwellings. Mixed-use projects will also be permitted. New construction shall be designed to reflect the character of the surrounding residential neighborhoods with significant reduction in lot sizes, lot frontages, and setbacks. A pedestrian-oriented approach to development will be applied where feasible. New residential subdivisions as defined by state statute will be excluded. So the idea there is to create a little village-like, old country town type of atmosphere with lots of things going on. And the planning board has some language ready for that will be discussed at next week's public hearing and presented at town meeting. Any questions, comments on that particular district?
I would assume Winks is in there, and it's a great place, and we get coffee there, and great muffins, and blueberry pies from my Doris Lane, and hope that grows.
You would be correct, and I'm sure that compliment was appreciated by the lady in the back. Anything else on that? Okay, item 2 on our public hearing agenda. In the goals, policies, and actions section, this is basically the non-substantive portion of this. We had to change some of the language in those, and the same thing actually applies to section F for the implementation plan. Any place in the goals, policies, or the implementation plan where we refer to CCN, CCS, and the districts whose names have changed, we simply had to change that language so that it referred to the appropriate designation for that mixed-use district as it's being presented in the comp plan at this time.
Madam Chairman, two
Yes,
other
sir.
things. We also eliminated pine tree zones since they're now universal throughout the state and are not geographically isolated. And also references to the school board
Yes.
and the school committee.
Yes, and that was something that was overlooked the last time we did the comprehensive plan, when we went through the fine-tooth comb. Apparently the comb had a tooth missing, and we neglected to eliminate that one phrase. But other than that, as I said, it's mostly just the making that portion of it jive with the narrative portion of the plan in section B and C. Yes, sir.
Is there anywhere in the proposed actions discussion about establishing walkways or bike lanes in town along public right-of-way? Anywhere in this
No.
document? It wasn't discussed by the planning board, I mean, the comprehensive planning committee.
No, it was not.
Okay, that was in one of the former documents. I happen to be sitting on the comprehensive planning committee at the time, and I think it might be wise, as this town gets built out, to have such recreation lanes. Formerly, it was, would take as much as paving the shoulders of the roads. If you notice now, when the roads are being paved, they're being reclaimed on the shoulder. But it wouldn't take a big investment to establish some bike lanes along the Arundel roads. And it would be a bright spot for the town and the residents to be considering such recreation opportunities, particularly in the growth areas, particularly that you have Eastern Trail now. So I think it's something that, if you're open to it, you might want to consider adding in the appropriate place as an action item.
Well, the comprehensive plan committee is not done at this point in time. We'll get through town meeting, hopefully this will be approved, and then we're going to take a look at a lot of other things in the plan. So that's certainly something.
So would you accept this as a recommendation for the minutes tonight, what I just said, documented in the minutes?
Madam Chair, there already is something in the table for bike lanes.
There you go.
Okay, so where would that be?
Section F4, if you look at, 15-2, 15.2, the streets are improved consideration that in addition of paved shoulders for use as bicycle lane, high priority for bicycle lanes, including campground roads, including walkway and roads and the road. So that's something that's been there for a while.
Correct, it sounds like the same thing that I recognize.
Yeah, it hasn't changed, it's been in there for, I know I read it somewhere.
So good.
Well, it sounded familiar to me too, but you're the table man. I always find those right away. So, yes, Jackie.
Madam Chair, could you please explain to why the districts are written as all one warrant and not written independently, lessening the risk to have the whole package fail?
Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to answer that question. However, we did have that discussion, and the recommendation for separate warrants for the ordinance was something that we had recommended. The comprehensive plan piece will all be one piece, because this kind of, it either hangs together or it doesn't. I'll turn your question over to Mr. Redway.
In terms of the zoning ordinance, the reason is that there is so much interconnectivity that if one section fails, in many cases, it's going to scuttle the other section. We could not separate them out because there's too much interconnectivity, especially in the DB1 and the DB2, and then the definitions. Then when you get in the use table, and you get into the district tables, what happens is they're all so interconnected, even the district descriptions are so interconnected that if something were to be pulled out, it invalidates the other stuff. In many cases where we would have a conflict where we wouldn't be able to use the district because of the conflicts in the ordinance that would occur if the section was pulled out. It's kind of knitted together, and that's why we had to basically do that. There were several things that we wanted to put separately, but realized if we had one section had failed, we wouldn't have the essential component that we needed to make one of the districts work or another district work. Especially, a good example would be, let's say, there was pet daycare. If pet daycare failed, then all of those standards that were required in several districts that were very, very tightly crafted and negotiated would suddenly leave all these residential areas open to an unregulated kind of facility. So the concern was that we actually, they have to hang together or they just fall apart when into application.
Sam Hall, resident, I'm also a member of the EDC, but I'm speaking for myself now. Is it a matter, do I understand that it's a matter of staff time and availability to make this happen, or is it a physical impossibility to have the separate warrant items for each of the districts? In other words, if you were starting with a clean slate, could you create separate warrants?
Starlight Clean Site. The problem is, the problem with the zoning ordinances, they are interconnected.
Could they, I didn't ask
Could
that.
they be,
Could you,
if I have separate definitions for every district, sure.
so it's a
My
matter
ordinance
of,
would be 700 pages long.
okay,
Because I have definitions that apply to all the districts.
I understand that, but the risk that has been referenced is that there will be an issue that will defeat the whole warrant. Therefore, taking down with it business district changes that are needed for this town to continue to grow. And the concern has always been, evidenced I gather at the CDC as well as the EDC, that we need to start the growth now and not take the chance of having this go down. So I just ask, is it a matter of staff time and willingness, or is it physically impossible to separate?
It's very difficult to keep the ordinance from unraveling if you don't have it all knit together. No, that's the question.
I don't know, I can't understand, excuse me, I don't understand your answer. I know it's difficult. I ask you, could it be done?
Are there any specific zones that you would like to see separated, or are you talking about all of them separated?
Well, specifically the business zones, because that's the ones I think that were addressed by the comp plan review committee, right?
Yes.
And that's all that's
And it's
before
also,
the board, are all three business owners. That's all we have, business owners. That's all we're proposing, are three business owners.
There was,
Well, townhouse.
I understand that, but, okay. I would hate to see this warrant go down in defeat and waste another year of potential economic development, because we haven't done the comp plan, and the plan, it fails, and we're going to start back at zero again. So I'm only asking, is there some way that could be conceived of to make it less likely that it would fail in the total and could pass piece by piece?
So there's still something you gotta look at from the zoning board.
I understand.
Not the comp plan.
I understand.
Comp plan passes as this vision document, the foundation for zoning ordinance, but, you know, you're asking to look at, and I think that's for the next hearing, whether you can separate out.
I know there's a time constraint here.
Oh, sure.
You've signed the warrant as it is now.
No, we don't.
No.
Warrant hasn't been signed yet.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was.
I guess my question that probably definitely needs to be addressed with the planning board is, what are the issues that you have, and then if it fails, it doesn't have to wait a year, it can be brought up at another a special town meeting can be called, and you can revisit it again, but it would be nice to know what you're dealing with as far as why you don't like, parts of the ordinance, or what is it, I guess it's hard to sit there and say, we're gonna break it apart, and yet we don't know what it is that we're breaking it apart for, so, I understand, like Tat said, it's like if you adopt one thing, it's, you don't realize, just like in the comprehensive plan, when we change one thing, you have to go to all these pages and make sure that it's addressed in those pages, so it's really hard to break out just one section and do that and not realize that it does apply to a lot of other sections, but, it'd be nice to kind of just know.
I'm concerned that,
The issues.
I answer your question, I'm concerned that we have to wait another year or another time period, okay, special election, I know you can have it, that's expensive, it's tough to get people up. I'm concerned about losing time on needed time for economic development. We can make things happen rather than just talking about them.
I want to take people in the order that their hands went up, so. Linda?
Well, I guess my question really is more of a planning board question, so forgive me, I know this is a comprehensive planning, but the conversation that I had started at a comprehensive planning board meeting where we talked about separating these different districts out. And then there was 2 planning board meetings that followed that I went to that it was also discussed that these districts would be put on the warrant. The specific question was asked, will these be put on the warrant in the different districts? So that if one was set and ready to go with no opposition, we could get something going. And if something, another district wasn't, then, and not only that, you would know by breaking it up which ones, how now would you know what people don't like about what they're voting for? you know, there's not really any way to know, like Simone said, there's no way for us to know if it's all in one. I'd just like to know when this was decided upon, that it was gonna be, all districts were gonna go on one warrant.
I think we discussed it, someone at the planning board, and we discussed it at the administrative level too. How are we gonna do this, how are we gonna break it down?
I don't know if it was discussed at a planning board meeting, because I haven't been able to find it anywhere.
The issue, Linda, is if you were to start from scratch and rewrite a whole new ordinance, then you could do that. But if you were to break it apart now, the ordinance, the way the ordinance is written today, if you had some of it that passed and some of it didn't, it would mess things up so bad, it's unbelievable. Because you'd have to start literally from scratch and write a whole new ordinance in case different pieces fall apart. The way the ordinance is written today, it would mess it all up. If you spread it apart, and parts of it fall apart. Because you'd have all kinds of loopholes in the ordinance. You wouldn't be able to cover what failed. And what failed, what was left, would conflict with some of the stuff that's already been changed.
I guess, I don't know why I'm not fully understanding that, because, like I said, when we were at the planning board meeting, we were discussing it, it was determined that it could be done. And it was agreed that it would be done. So I guess when did the change take place, and why the change? I understand the confusion, I understand there's a lot involved, and more would have to be written, but,
Running out of time to be able to do, what Sam had asked, yeah, can you engineer a zoning ordinance so you can do it in piecemeal fashion? Sure, but we don't have the time to redesign the entire zoning ordinance to be able to do that right now. That's the problem. And really, it's a functional issue, it's not a political issue, it's not, we're hoping all of them pass. I want them all to pass, obviously. But the problem is if one falls apart, one fails, it's gonna rip the guts out of another one. And I'm even gonna have boundary problems as a result. Because some of these go beyond boundaries that currently exist. That's one of the problems.
which makes sense, DB1 and DB2 would have to be done together, because,
They have
but, you know what I mean? That makes
So
sense, they would have to be
DB1
done
went
together
down,
because the
DB2
boundaries
Yeah.
conflict, but the Townhouse Corner District did not need to be included in that. Or Alfred Road.
As long as all the definitions in section 6 and the definitions in section 13 pass as well. If those pass as well, yeah, you probably could, that one could probably survive without DB1.
Wasn't there a discussion
What-
at the planning board about separating the townhouse corner district?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I was at that meeting and I remember that, the planning board wanted that one specifically separated.
You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, you've got a real jewel there, so you
Well,
want to.
I realize that, and at the same time, I think part of the reason was we weren't sure we could get the DB1 and DB2 together in time. So I said, let's get it out.
Let's get back to something we might call format here. John, you had your hand up.
Well, as a member of the planning board, I did miss the last two meetings, so I guess my question is, did the planning board make a decision at one of the last two meetings to make this a single warrant article? Because in the past, the planning board had decided to separate out townhouse corners. Definitely had directed, and the planner had told us that that was going to happen, it was possible, it was not a problem. So if the planning board decided that in the two meetings that I missed, certainly, I can understand that, but other than that, I don't know when this happened.
It was a process.
What do you mean?
The
Process.
Was it decided by the planning
It
board?
was decided by, it was in discussion with members of the planning board, it was a discussion with also the town manager.
So
It wasn't decided by the planning
It
board.
gets determined by the select.
Selectmen set the warrant.
I don't care about the selectmen.
Okay.
We do, Tom.
No, I'm serious. The planning board had specifically directed the planner to separate these. And unless the planning board had reversed that, then I'm wondering where this suddenly came from.
Well, part of the,
Before it even got to the selectmen.
Well, it's gonna come to the selectmen with a planning board recommendation, and the selectmen may, after we attend the hearing on next Thursday, may have other ideas of our own. We ultimately will decide how the warrant article is shaped,
Correct.
and we may disagree with the planning board.
I understand that, but we haven't got there yet.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's exactly.
So I'm wondering how this change took place. So it doesn't sound like it happened at a planning board meeting.
It happened in discussions with planning board chairman and with several members and with the town manager.
Not at a planning board meeting.
We discussed it, I think it's the last.
And I'll caution,
Okay, well, then, just for clarification, because we had made a point of that at the planning.
Yeah, and I think what happened was so many changes occurred at the last meeting, when the planning board went through the whole thing.
Okay, now that we have set the stage nicely for next Thursday's public hearing on the planning board, and I urge you all to bring padded suits, I would like to get back to our own agenda and finish this off if I may. So if your comment refers to the comprehensive plan, I would be delighted to hear it.
Well, actually, I wanted to address this. Does that mean the selectmen make the final change? So does that mean, like, we were told that it was all gonna be one warrant? Does that mean as a selectman, at this point, you have the ability to make that change? Okay.
Well, I don't individually.
Well, not you individually, but
The select.
the selectmen can do that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, that's good to know.
Good to know.
Good to know.
But to Donna's point, nothing happens, no ordinance change happens unless this passes.
Right.
Right, oh, I understand that. I'm not, okay, sorry.
We love the concept.
That's right.
Okay. Before I go to my committee members, are there any other members of the audience who would like to have input with regards to anything in the comprehensive plan and the proposed changes which will be presented at town meeting? Okay. Do either of your comments have to do with the comprehensive?
I just wanted to answer Wayne. Wayne had a question about the sidewalks and the pedestrian friendly. If you look at the DB1 under the development standards on page C6, kind of like the second sentence down, our guidelines were saying site design standards will encourage development with buildings located closer to the street with parking in the rear, access from side roads or shared access feasible, pedestrian friendly atmosphere should be an integral part of the approach to development, and the site conditions and infrastructure will determine the maximum density. But we did want it so that the DB1 would be more like the smaller shops, and then the bigger commercial businesses would be a little bit in the DB2 behind them, but that you could maybe walk from shop to shop in the, not right on Route 1, at least maybe to the back, or do smaller cluster of shops and things like that.
Well, that's excellent, excellent value added and good for all the residents here.
Diane? All right. Well, if there are no further comments or questions, I'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting.
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to thank you and your board for an excellent job on this document. Very well.
Thank you very much, sir. We did our best. Okay. Well, now we have a regular meeting, which is going to be very brief. Like to entertain a motion to,
You probably shouldn't.
we need to make a motion to over this to the board of selectmen.
I'll make the motion for the changes to the board select.
Do I hear a second? Thank you. All those in favor? Very, very good. I have no other business to bring forth at this time, except to remind you that we have a, hopefully, assuming this all passes, so we're done, we have our next meeting on July 1st to address future issues.
Well, we can't do residential,
Yes, well, basically,
we have residential and a couple other,
the rest of the document. Clean up.
that's it.
The meeting on Thursday starts at 7:00.
7 o'clock.
Thank you all again. And, motion adjourned. Thank you, all those in favor?
Yeah.
It sounds like a planning board. There's probably some kind of announcement that's,
That's okay.
Much. We just have a wonderful time.
We took the hit for that one. Oh, yeah, they had everything.
It's your call. You guys want to separate it? Separate it. It's just townhouse. Townhouse exceeds, say, definitions. It's failed. There's some controversial stuff. I have a call.
Thanks. So I will,
All right.
that's gotta be tons more than the rest of us have.
Well, no, I'll give
Yes,
you
so
an
do
example.
I.
Let's say,
Do you like that?
non-roads means no go-karts. It's not. If I change that, and every time any of the other businesses, there would have no interpretation in the ones that the other businesses and if it's just very broad definitions, there would be no interpretation. So your retail, warehousing, commercial service. Oh,
It's you've got people that are going to
because right now, there's a very loose definition, very loose categories, as you know. Uses his own discretion to make an interpretation. Without that, I did open it just
all I want to do is ask you this question. I can't even ask that without being interrupted.
Sorry, Diane, I'm sorry.
I'm scared of some of the other parties. was gonna pass.
Actually,
The townhouse.
I know what she's asking.
I know what she's asking, but at the same time, it's not what we're purposely reading.
Oh, I know.
You know, we bend over backwards. You know,
Almost.
well, I just missed her one, so. I need somebody to
I'm waiting for you to get along over there.
Maybe another fall, maybe, if I'm lucky, it'll fall.
I keep looking at that house, I just, man, that's such a gorgeous house.
Yeah, my have been, what I've been focusing on the last couple of weeks is
Most of the people on
my
Route
basement,
One,
that the house is empty, and I have.
for all the years that we've had, I'm pretty sure that they understand
It's
that
like
we've
the size
actually
of
expanded
the
it.
table.
Things that they use, we've been given a lot more.
Give them
It's gonna go in the basement. And so my big thing was, I looked at the basement, I was gonna start putting my stuff, my books and stuff down, and I thought,
Which is pretty
I am never
generous.
gonna see an empty basement like this again.
But
So I went
it's
to Home
what I
Depot
needed
and I
to do
got
to
some
get this-
I
machines
understand
and
that.
I
I
painted
hate
the
it.
walls.
I'm not fond of it either,
And I finally finished
but
two
at the
posts
same
on the
time, look,
floor
it's the
this
ultimate
week.
fair.
And,
It's the ultimate fair.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I was
I
afraid
did
this
my
was
side, my
grandfathered.
daughter's side, I did the walls,
It
and we
works.
did do the
Works
floor,
for
but I figured.
centuries. Yeah, that's
So now I'm gonna start moving my stuff over.
We've gone
you know,
beyond
it's
that.
like,
Yeah, my concern
Oh,
is there are,
but, you know,
people in the town that
It's
are
like-
against the townhouse district, and I hate to see
Really?
that
just tired
fail.
of government being played for
I
everything.
know there's so much going on.
I
I know there's so much.
Look at the website.
Generally speaking,
You know,
it's
You know, it's like I cannot write a letter to every person in town about every meeting, you know. They're on the website. It's on the website, it's,
I said it from the get-go. DB1 and DB2 should rise and fall on their own merits, has corner, rise and fall on its own merits.
But you guys haven't done that historically. You know, if you look back,
We did.
if you look back at the warrants, you do things in one warrant.
We haven't done this historically,
Well, you changed major districts, you did in 2007.
not
You did
this
it in
way.
one warrant. You did it in one
I
warrant.
understand that, but we
What's
haven't,
happening to the old house?
we haven't done it this way, with one public input up front. And we have a long history of the comp plan not passing at town meeting too. Okay, which is one of the reasons why I suggested that, you know, we do it, let's get the public in here, let's build a basis for it, at least the people, whether they agree with us or not, at least understand it. So a town meeting, we don't have to have somebody stand up and say, I understand you can't have a garden on Route 1 anymore. No,
Yeah, I mean, if
So,
you
you know, we're
know
not-
where to mark.
Yeah, I know,
it,
it's,
quite
well, we've,
good.
diffusing the idiocy is an important piece of the process, and I think we've done that.
you think so? I'm not always so sure.
Well, you never know, who's gonna show up at town meeting, but by the same token, I really do, because they're two separate.
I'll do it. I don't have a problem doing it. I just, I
Oh, yeah.
think it's an exposure issue.
Well-
One thing doesn't,
Sure, yeah.
if somebody, I know there's some people that pick up the same
But
definition.
even then, a lot of that.
That narrows it.
Take down
As I said,
site
we're gonna have some.
Well, I mean,
Well,
of course, about
Now,
definition,
aim.
that's insane.
Well, that's what, that's, if you, all right, if we take everything else and then townhouse corner,
It depends on
Probably
whether
could-
one wants
probably
to
could
do
survive.
the whole thing and take it out of the dumpster if he does, and you can like copper, but if
make
not,
them
the
happy,
boys can.
for whatever reason, they're
Sure.
concerned.
But the one town meeting,
Because Northwood, they put it all in.
It's only-
every
it's
difficult.
only if
Well,
it's
see,
people
it's-
show up.
Always be in the trees.
We're having a meeting.
Delete.
Being Kate,